All right, so thank you very much to those who have joined us, Wong and also Zara Sophia and also Ilhan. Feel free to invite your friends to come and join us as well. And of course, to those who are with us in FB already, thank you very much. Now, for tonight, our session for the Career Talk Master Series will be in banking and insurance, with our special guest, Mr. Wan Ahmad Ikram, Wan Ahmad Lotfi from MRSN Taiping batch 1994. All right, so currently he is the Chief Finance Officer, or the CFO, we usually call, in Perbadanan Insurance Deposit Malaysia, PIDM, which usually acts as, you could say, an insurance to the other banks in Malaysia, where it provides, if not mistaken, 250,000 to each depositor if it goes to, like, the banks can't give them the money, right? All right. Now, what's interesting about tonight's session is that because our audience comes from an SPM background, this is mostly to cater SPM students. So some of the slides will be on the basis of accounting for you to better understand. And for other people, generally it will be in layman terms. So feel free, be open to ask as many questions as you want. Mr. Ikram enjoys questions. and I guess the floor is yours, Mr. Ikram.
Thank you, man. Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is okay. Today, petang tadi was a very wet evening or wet afternoon. Ribut tadi, my place. But I hope everybody is okay and safe. And I can see some of my classmates are also in here as well. Tuan Nick Charizal is here. So he dah crash masuk dalam nak tolong. Okay, you can help me, Nick, as we go along. Maybe we can share our experience. Let's make this an interactive one. So yeah, I want to basically just start off by perhaps just introducing myself a bit lah. Yeah. With that, maybe perhaps I just share my slides, if that's okay, Iman. Kerjaya, hold on, let me put it on presentation mode.
Boleh ke? Okay, nice, yep.
Can you all see?
Yes, now we can see.
All right, okay, cool. Okay. So, I want to start off with perhaps just a quote. Since we are talking about this is a master's series, right? It's a master's series talk. So, I just want to say as a start, what's the difference between a master and a beginner? As what Yoda always say, I'm a fan of Star Wars, lah, as you can see. A master is the one who has failed more times than anybody else as the beginner who have just tried, right? Which is very true. I think, why we are here, where we are at, for myself and perhaps a lot of my other friends and colleagues, is that we've gone through a lot, right? It's not an easy journey as we went and then as we go along, but we learn along the way. And I think that's my starting point that I just want to share. So as with most of all of us, we start off in school. I am an SPM batch 94. Was not one of the brightest student actually, cikgu. Tapi I think I managed to skate through my SPM juga enough to get me through to study in Australia. So I did my Bachelor of Commerce in Melbourne, Australia, up to 1998. And then, and it was actually under a scholarship, Telecom. And on that, when I came back, I just briefly joined Telecom Malaysia as assistant manager, of which then I was blessed to get the opportunity to be seconded to KPMG Melbourne, Australia, to pursue my articleship, to do my chartered. At the same time as when Nick went to the UK to do his chartered as well, but ICAAW. So I did my ICAA. Over the weekend kadang-kadang I kacau dia juga, dia kacau I, tapi most of the time we are a bit too busy to entertain each other. So, but yeah, we did it about roughly about the same time. Um, I completed my CA in 2001, stayed on for another year or so in KPMG. And then I was somewhat spotted and invited to come back to Malaysia to join an insurance company, Tahan Insurance, in the internal audit. And I was there, I was back in Malaysia in 2002, joined Tahan Insurance back then as the internal audit, head of internal audit, helped set it up, the internal audit function, and then was promoted to chief internal auditor up to about 2004, of which then we were going through some restructuring work and whatnot in Tahan Insurance. And because I was somewhat involved there, me and my big mouth, they asked me to then take on the role of the CFO as part of the restructuring, which was a very big step, and it was very challenging because at that time, Tahan Insurance was going through a bit of a challenging point. Within the first 2 weeks in that role, actually, I nak resign dah sebenarnya. Tapi, the management and in particular the regulators dan negara said, no, you stay on, help us restructure and fix the company. So I stayed on until 2006 and helped to do some work, including restructuring and doing some selling off or spinning off the life insurance business to another company, Afinexa. And then in 2006, I joined PIDM as the first CFO of PIDM. And then throughout my career in PIDM tu adalah tukar-tukar sikit role sikit. I did take on also the role of chief internal auditor for a short while as part of a job rotation. And back in 2017, I was back into the Chief Financial Officer role, CFO, but with a slightly different scope and mandate in terms of my role. In 2019, I was also appointed as the council member of the Malaysian Institute of Accountants until now. I don't want to elaborate on my qualification. You guys can sort of see there. Kalau nak tahu lebih banyak lagi sikit, you can check my PIDM website punya profile. It's all there as well. But in general, I am an accountant, professional accountant by profession, professional qualification, primarily Australian Institute of Chartered Accountant, FCA there. I am also involved with a bit of Islamic finance. So I am a chartered professional Islamic finance member of the Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance. So that's briefly about me. Don't want to talk much. It's not so much about me, it's about you all. So I just want to share with you all a bit about what is banking and what is insurance. Maybe I start off with banking first lah. So I'm sure you guys know lah sebenarnya generally how the bank works. Bank ambil duit and then bagi loan. So a bank is basically a financial intermediary institution. Yeah, it basically takes on its funds primarily from depositors. Kita ada duit apa semua kita simpan kat bank kan. As much as possible jangan simpan bawah bantal. Bahaya kalau bakar nanti kan hilang tak pasal. So that's why banks have been created, right? For you to be able to have a safe means to basically keep your money. At the same time, of course, the shareholders also provide capital to start operating and running the bank. And because it's regulated, there's a bit more to it in terms of its capital requirement. So what does the bank do? Dia ambil duit ni, dia ambil duit shareholder, dia bagi loan, right? As part of its business to intermediate and transform its funds that it receives into a working capital for financing, right? So basically, this is the general business model of a bank lah. They ambil duit kita, they make sure that duit tu selamat, but at the same time, it will then transform the funds to be able to then provide financing, which is also for us, the public to then use to then buat business, ambil loan, beli rumah, beli kereta. So it's part of the cycle of the economy. We call it money circulation. Yeah, that's the bank. And on the other side pula, the bank also then earns from the charging of either interest or profits but profit in the terms of Islamic finance, right? So that one, kalau kita ambil loan, the borrowers will have to pay or bear that cost, which becomes an income to the bank. And of course, us as depositor yang bagi duit dekat bank to keep it safe, but it's also a source of funds, will also then get some returns for it. So the banks will also then provide returns to the fund providers in the form of interest or profits, as well as dividends to the shareholders. So that's in essence how the bank works, right? Conceptually. Insurance company on the other hand, dia lain sikit. Insurance company ni kita policy holder, kita nak insurance coverage, right? We want protection. It's a form of service. So what we do is we will pay for that service. In takaful punya concept pula, it's called a principle of ta'awun, collective contribution, right? To then support and protect each other in a group or a community, right? But there will need to be a party who provides or operate or manage that fund lah. So that's usually what we call as the takaful operator, and there's a few models for that. But generally, that's how takaful work. Walaupun the general principle is the same, kita bayar for the protection or we contribute for the protection, but the contractual relationship is slightly different lah between conventional and Islamic. But the whole idea is we pay to get coverage. And in return, the insurance company will then provide us insurance coverage if something happens, or what we call at peril, right? Kalau ada benda berlaku, and also they use that funds or fees that they take on to cover their operations lah. Duit that they also then collect will then be invested. And they basically manage it in the form of insurance funds and will be invested in investment instruments to earn sufficient return. And if there is a claim from the policyholder, then the insurance company or takaful operators will then make good for the claim. Okay, so that's generally how banking and insurance company or takaful operators operate. I want to just give a slightly different perspective sikit. Since we are talking to accounting students cikgu, mostly. So, I nak tunjuk sikit.
Mostly dah ni memang accounting student.
Okay. So, I'm sure they know about balance sheet, right? Kunci kira-kira kalau ikut dulu-dulu lah, sekarang penyata kedudukan kewangan sekarang. So this is a slightly different perspective lah of the banks and insurance from an accounting standpoint. I just wanted to share because ada makna sikit di sebalik ni, bukan di sebalik udang lah, ada sebalik ada baba kat sini kan. So but anyway, basically this is just to show how the bank punya balance sheet looks like as compared to an insurance company balance sheet looks like. Remember I mentioned just now for the bank, they ambil duit from depositors, right? And then they become the intermediary to then transform that funds, the sources of funds that they take, to then convert it into a means to provide financing. At the same time, they will also invest part of it lah to also balance out their portfolio and income. So basically, generally you will find that for the banks, the deposit punya base dia akan lagi besar, but loan dia sepatutnya lagi kecil sikit lah daripada dia punya deposit base. Yeah, but it will also be balanced out with other asset. The trick about this bank punya operation is and how they operate is called transformation principle, because they are transforming duit deposit yang you ada, which is short term, on call. Maknanya kalau kita letak itu, kita boleh ambil bila-bila masa. Betul? On the banking side, on the asset side, loan is slightly longer term. The bank will lend out and there will be a repayment schedule or repayment scheme for the borrowers to then pay, which is usually over a period of time, right? So there is a mismatch between the asset and the liabilities. Yeah. So because of that, there's a lot of complexity sebenarnya. Walaupun I cerita tadi the front end business of the banking operation tu sebenarnya nampak senang kan. Tapi the real essence of it sebenarnya banking ni is also quite complex. And because it involves duit kita as the public, right? And you know, if something happens to the bank, there's a risk that duit kita mungkin akan hilang, right? And that's very bad, right? And that's why they always say that the financial system, particularly the banking industry, is the pillar to the economy. Because if something happens to the banking system, the whole economic sector will be affected and the whole country can collapse. So therefore, that's one of the main reason why the banking sector, particularly, is highly regulated lah. Yeah. In particular by Bank Negara and also by the entity that I work for, PIDM. We are part of the financial safety net. The role is to actually protect you all as the depositor. If something happens, that's where we come in and we will ensure that you get your money back and it's protected. Yeah, so that you all boleh tidur selamat, tak payah nak risau, tak payah nak letak duit bawah katil, memang boleh letak kat bank, akan selamat. Okay, so in order for the bank to operate with that complexity, sebenarnya there's a lot of other functions within the bank. Yeah, I won't go through it, but you can see on the left-hand side tu kan ada a few list of things yang ada dekat dalam bank tu. So basically, you know, that's some of the areas lah of how, you know, the bank operates. Yeah, insurance pula is slightly different. Tadi kita bayar. As policy holder or takaful certificate holder, kita bayar nak dapat protection, right? So duit tu dia akan simpan, dia akan masuk and it becomes part of the funds in the asset side and they invest it. So the big portion of the investment, of the asset side of the insurance company or takaful operator is actually investment. Okay, pasal diorang nak kena make sure that the money they have is then sufficient to cover the liability side. The liability side is basically their expected exposure to cover your insurance coverage ataupun, you know, basically your takaful policy kalau something happens, right? So it's to cover the claims as well as the reserves. For the insurance, they basically what they do is a matching principle lah. They akan make sure that the asset side ni is sufficient to cover the liability side. But the trick is the liability side ni pula is very subjective pasal you nak kena estimate. And because of that, there's a lot of subjectivity. Estimation of liability in the insurance ni is actually quite complex. And that's why also then there's specific group of people who are specialists in that area that manages that. So kenapa nak tunjuk ni kan is actually not so much nak cerita, sorry cikgu, I bukan nak lecture sebenarnya. tapi I just wanted to just give this perspective because what it basically means is that for both the banking and the insurance industry, sebenarnya there's a lot of opportunities in terms of career path, in terms of what choices you may have and to explore as far as your career is concerned. Yeah. So kita kata tadi on the assets, on the liability side, banyak benda nak kena buat, banyak benda nak kena manage. There are a lot of different roles and a lot of different specialization within both banking and insurance that supports the overall operations of the bank. I mean, for example, at the bank, you know, when you talk about the loan side, basically you have those credit risk specialist, a finance manager yang akan buat assessment of your loan. Dia kena make sure that, you know, you are credit worthy nak dapatkan loan kan. So, you know, but itu pun kalau tak credit worthy, they will see how best that you to structure it to make sure that you are able to afford it, right? And at the same time, adalah juga ada sales people yang duk jual-jual, you know, the insurance product, the banking products and whatnot. We also have the asset managers and the investment managers, right, who are managing the assets of the banks. You have financial analysts, you have corporate financiers. One of the other few main roles in the banking side is the economist, That one, they are very important because they need to look at the management of the overall transformation principle, right? Product development, nak tengok rates macam mana, nak tengok the viability of the business macam mana, coupled together with the risk managers, right? And if it's Islamic financial institution, you have Sharia expert. Operations, I tak touch lagi. You have banks nowadays, especially, are very, moving on into very much digital operations. Yeah, so technology experts, technology specialists are very much in demand in the banking sector. Process specialists, governance specialists, and also managers, operations managers. And of course, people like me lah, regulators who need to basically know bits and pieces of everything lah. I sebenarnya bukan specialist in all of this. Banyak some of my colleagues ada setengah tu. I can tell you, cikgu, kita punya batch ni ada yang tertera kat dalam banking ni, ada yang head IT dekat some of the big Islamic bank lah, apa semua. So memang we should be proud of them lah. So, but yeah, I have to say, we have some very good people coming from Taiping who are in the banking institutions already, and they're doing very well. Similarly, on the insurance side, it's a very specialized area, right? You talk about buat the product, buat the underwriting of the coverage, you need underwriters, insurance specialists, you need claims specialists, you need investment managers, those yang specialized in insurance. But most of all, yang paling penting, and usually yang paling kaya lah sebenarnya kat dalam the insurance punya side ni, is the actuaries, right? It's actually known to be one of the hardest course in the world sebenarnya. Even harder than professional accounting lah, I have to say. Sorry Anik, betul but I would have to agree that one is actually among the hardest. It takes almost 10 years after your degree just to get to the end of the professional qualification to be able to sign an audit report, actuary report. You need to be a fellow, and in order to do that, it is a very painful journey. But I can tell you, even in our alumni, we have a few very established actuaries. One of our senior, cikgu, Katina, she's the actuaries punya president, if I'm not mistaken, Actuaries Association or Institute dekat UK, and she's doing very well. Maybe we can try and hook up with her nanti. She's actually connected with me on LinkedIn. Nanti we can try and catch her lah one of these days. Tapi kita tengok time zone lah, pasal dia duduk kat UK sebenarnya. So, but anyway, my point here is basically the banking and insurance sector gives a lot of opportunities lah sebenarnya, and I didn't plan to join to be specifically in the financial sector, particularly waktu I kat KPMG in Australia tu, sebenarnya I tak buat pun audit of financial institutions or even other services, right? Tapi I was quite lucky and blessed to be having the opportunity when I came back to join the insurance company, and it just flows on from there lah. But it also my involvement in the financial sector ni sebenarnya is also an aspiration from my family. My late father, my arwah father, was an insurance person. And he was also the one who inspired me lah to go into the accounting and finance punya line, right? I mula-mula nak jadi pilot, tapi lepas tu macam mata rabun sikit tak idea. So my dad kata buatlah accounting, okay lah buatlah accounting. So I ended up doing that. Never really thought of going join insurance ke bank ke, but then I ended up being in it. And my brother is in the insurance industry as well. So basically, the whole family is in the financial sector lah at this point in time. So, but yeah, that's basically what I just wanted to briefly share on the banking and insurance. So, I open up. I just like to just invite questions, and let's have a chat. What do people want to know about the industry, about the financial sector or the financial safety net? anything that anybody wants to know about accounting and finance profession, or anything else, or whoever who would also like to just share their views. Iman, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ikram, for the very interesting take on banking and insurance. Definitely, because I'm coming from accounting, the part of the balance sheet is very interesting for me. So while we wait for questions coming from the audience, please do put in your questions if you have any. If you're coming from Zoom, inside the chat box, and if you're coming from Facebook, inside the comment section. All right, so my first question would be, because like banking, insurance, and also firms or commercial companies, they all obviously would have different environments, like working environments, right? So could you help give us a gauge of what exactly is the environment like because you went into an insurance company, and also the difference from an accounting firm? Yes.
Different and interesting in many ways.
Can you elaborate?
Okay. I think for when I was in the accounting firm too, I think Nick can also vouch for that lah. And those who may have some experience a bit in the accounting firm, it's always it's a good training ground, but it's always being seen as where you kena squeeze lah dekat situ, yeah. Because you are working with many multiple engagement, tight deadlines, reporting deadlines, many bosses, because you are operating in and have many partners potentially, if you are not there yet to report to, right? Unless you already like macam Nick, dia dah partner, so dia manage orang bawah-bawah dia, tapi dia pun pening juga. But the environment, I would say, in the firm, as compared to if you're in the commercial sector, in particular the banking sector, is that depending on your role and the level of responsibility and accountability that you carry. Because when you are in the firm, your responsibility is to make sure that macam if you're doing audit, you need to sign off. And make sure that all the review and audit semua is completed and everything gets done on time and whatnot semua kan. But if you are in the commercial side itself, you're in the industry itself, and you're taking on certain roles, like for example me in finance, right, or as a CFO, I need to make decisions, right? And sometimes you don't know whether you're making the right one, but nevertheless you need to make a decision. Right? So the pressure is different. When you work in an environment also, you are working with multiple people with different roles. In a firm, accounting firm, usually you are with a group of people who are of similar background in terms of your education, in terms of your studies, and therefore your mindset. Whereas kalau macam tunjuk tadi kan, yang balance sheet tu and the kind of people yang ada kat dalam a banking institution or insurance company kan, there's so many different people. Right, and these different people have different mindset, different thinking, different background, or even different values, right? So the challenge is very much interacting with these people and managing them. I would say stress level sama je, mana-mana you pergi pun sama je, cuma dia punya nature je berbeza sikit.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so since you touched on because you were coming from a perspective of an internal audit and also an external audit, right? Okay, cool. All right, so because you also touched just now on how these people came from different backgrounds, so like how will each of these these people coming from different avenues entering banking and insurance, what qualities do you think would make them suitable to enter into banking or insurance?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I think the primary thing, right, if you were to go into this industry, is professionalism, irrespective of whatever your field of studies or field of expertise. Why I say so is this: I mean, not to discriminate with any other of the industries. I think it's just it will require similar level of professionalism anywhere you go as well. But banking and insurance industry particularly, because you are dealing with, to a great extent, public money, people's funds. You are being trusted or entrusted to handle people's money, right? Amanah tu sebenarnya, right?
Yes, very
So
true.
therefore, the professionalism needs to be there, because otherwise it's very easy for, if you dah kumpul duit banyak-banyak and duit orang, right? And you want to do something bad with it, that is in front of you, right? So if you don't have that professionalism, a lot of things can happen. And that's why you see there's a lot of scams out there, right? Some of them are very smart, and to be able to pull off those scams sampai setengah tu dah been able to actually make money and be able to convince people out there to the extent that they are able to take money and then do something with it. And maybe mula-mula tu genuine juga, tapi lepas tu sebenarnya you find out that actually it's not a legit, business or a licensed business. Why is banking and insurance regulated? It's primarily because of that. Right? It's one is, it is the pillar of the economy, but the other main thing is the fact that you are handling duit orang, right? You're handling the monies and wealth of somebody else entrusted to you. So therefore, professionalism, I think, is key. The technical expertise you can develop, and over time it needs to evolve anyway. Right, like the banking industry now is evolving very, very much. I think in the FB ni ada buka kan, ada satu question tanya about fintech and distributed ledger. Maybe I can jawab lepas ni lah. But
Yes.
yeah, it's evolving. So whatever that you learn before and then you go into the banking, irrespective, you need to continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so to Mir Zaharin's question, your opinion about fintech distributed ledger.
Interesting. It's also close to my heart, because as far as my role as a CFO, actually I oversee a few areas apart from finance. I also look at shared services and also IT specifically, actually. So IT is under me. The financial sector can't run away from fintech, right? Technology lah. Okay, because we are all engrossed into it very much now. I mean, us as people on the ground, right? So why is it growing? Because the demand is there. We want convenience. We want efficiency. We don't want to be dealing with queues at the banks to be able to do a certain transaction. Kita nak buat just by a click of a button, right? So definitely fintech is the thing. It is growing very fast, and hence why the regulators, particularly Bank Negara, is really also paying a lot of attention and focus into it, both Bank Negara and SC. And they even have a specific group to handle that, right? So the main thing though is that because fintech opens up the avenues for non-licensed banking or financial institutions to also do financial related business, there's always the risk of things being out there that is not regulated lah. Yeah, so that's why you see that Bank Negara is into this quite closely, and we are also working closely with Bank Negara to ensure that we are also there from a financial consumer protection standpoint. Tapi it's definitely growing. It will continue. And there will be a lot of evolution on it, and it's evolving very, very fast. Distributed ledger is the key technology that is actually very, very good, actually, sebenarnya, distributed ledger or blockchain, right? If you understand what it is, sebenarnya it is actually, in essence, it is a technology that allows for transactions to be recorded at one end, and it is locked and fixed permanently, perpetually, and cannot be changed, and whatever that goes and be taken by another party will remain as such until a new transaction comes in, and then it add on lah. So basically, it's a very secured, into, not to say foolproof, but to a great extent, right? So the technology itself is very good. It's one of the reasons why then it's also being used primarily for cryptocurrency, macam Bitcoin and a few of the other cryptocurrency, because of that, concept or the basis of it. But it's again also how it's being used, right? So sebenarnya the technology of distributed ledger ni banyak purpose dia, right? So in particular, like electronic contracts. Not just currency contracts, but also any other contracts, transaction contracts. It's one of the most secure way to do. Tapi a lot of things are still being looked at. It's evolving. It's an evolving technology. We are already hearing accounting system being developed using distributed ledger technology and whatnot. Some of the banking transaction systems are also looking into that as well. So we will see how this space will evolve lah. What is sekarang ni tengah the hype sekarang ni when it comes to this is Bitcoin lah kan, pasal tengok harga dia sampai 200,000 ringgit, 50,000 US dollar. So but my advice is that if you're looking at that as far as investments is concerned, you need to understand a bit more of the market lah.
Very true, very true. Okay, so we do have one question available in FB, but before we move on to that, I have a question with regards to the topic that you talked about just now. So like this is the first time I've ever heard of distributed ledger, and because you say that like about blockchain being very secure, and about how Bitcoin and similar equities that are similar to it can be somewhat safeguarded with blockchain. But because you say, how do you see the future with blockchain inside Malaysia being more secure for not really the investors that want to invest in blockchain, but the consumers that want to purchase using blockchain and want to sell using blockchain?
Okay, basically, I think that one is the platform lah, kan, to basically trade lah, is a market, right?
Yes.
So market tu sebenarnya very open, as it is. I mean, and it's not jurisdiction bound, particularly, right? Which is why it is a bit of a concern from the regulatory standpoint around the world. You find that a lot of the regulators around the world now semua tengah pening kepala sikit, especially with this latest, situation where all the cryptocurrency semua duk melambung-lambung kan. So and we hear some of the central banks around the world, even the US, for example, are looking at regulating the cryptocurrencies. I think as far as the platform is concerned, right, it's not so much of an issue because it's it's quite widely available. It's quite, it's basically on the net, right? As long as you have internet access, you can generally access it one way or another. It's the safeguards. From your point of view, kalau you kata from kita consumer ni, kita nak beli, kita nak tahu benda tu selamat ke tak, right? It's what is the safeguard, right? Kalau you beli, and what are you using it for? Because macam kalau you are using it for investment, for example, if it drops, for example, how do I make sure that my money is still there, right? And that's one of the problem, you see, because at this point in time, none of the cryptocurrencies comes under any financial consumer protection, right? And it's seen as an investment instrument, which is generally not protected. So the consumer will need to take their own risk. So you have to really understand sebenarnya what it is, right? And what's the purpose of it. If you're going in with the mindset of an investor and you are savvy with the market, you know how to read the market, then perhaps you can make money out of it lah. But it's at your own risk, as with any other investments. But if you're looking at it as like a savings or a form of a currency, kan, pasal nama dia pun currency, you may want to think twice lah, because a lot of currency or deposits instruments around the world. For example, macam kat Malaysia kita pun, your deposits are protected by us, PIDM, where I work, right? And therefore you know that your money is safe. Apa-apa berlaku dekat bank, duit tu memang akan dijamin up to the limit lah. Macam kat Malaysia kita limit up to 250,000 per bank, per depositor. Kalau you nak simpan lebih banyak, you ada duit lagi banyak dari itu, those yang ada kaya-kaya, you diversify lah banyak-banyak bank. Tak lah asing kan. But there are means to do it. But you know that that's protected. Cryptocurrency at this point in time is not. Right? So you need to understand from a consumer perspective what you are in for. I think that's probably my thoughts on that as a start from a consumer perspective lah. Kalau you are thinking as macam mana nak guna tu, there are some digital instruments which are used for transaction. Tapi at the moment, I think most of the cryptocurrencies are being used primarily as investment instruments lah. That's the thing.
Yeah. Because I don't remember which company they made their first sale in Bitcoin or something. So that's why it intrigued me. Like, how will you be ensured that it is safe? And when you're making a sale or a purchase, like, is the price based on a point in time, or will it depend on when the transaction occurs and such? Okay, so enough of Bitcoin. Let's go to the next question. So from Yo Zaharin, I am planning, Sukri Hussein first. Macam mana nak switch dari engineering ke financial profession?
Boleh je. But you have to do and work extra hard sikit lah. I think in the previous talk by my friend Tuan Nick Syarizal, dia ada je cakap kan, those yang ada buat IECAW, those from law or engineering background, you can actually. I believe a lot of the professional bodies do accept certain level of or category of degree qualification for you to then do accounting professional qualification. My only take on that is that you have to probably work a bit harder to, if you don't have already the base knowledge or foundation on accounting, right? So kalau you tak tahu the principles of accounting and you want to jump straight away into doing accounting, especially at the professional level, it might be a bit of extra work lah, extra hard work, right, to do so. But you can, definitely you can. And macam saya cakap tadi juga, in the banking sector, for example, right, or even the insurance, there are a lot of people who are not from accounting trained background. They are even engineers, right? Especially in the risk management part, even in the banking side, you have the risk management part or the credit assessment, right? Those who are doing, credit assessment for construction projects and whatnot, they have engineers in there to do and help do credit assessments, right? So ada je. And it's just to the extent of what you want to do and how you want to be involved. If you want to do full-fledged accounting, you can be in the banking sector without doing accounting profession, but you may need to just supplement it with some banking punya certificate or banking training lah, right? So there's a lot of ways for you to sort of jump into from mainstream, technical engineering, for example, into finance sector.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, please do tell us, Sukri Hussein, if you have a follow-up question from that. All right, so our next question is coming from Yo Zaharin. So he's planning to take up a master's degree in fintech and blockchain, or DL. I'm not sure what DL is. Would you suggest which institution? Oh, okay, sorry, distributed ledger. Okay, so would you suggest which institution offers the best course?
Sorry lah, Mio. I wouldn't be able to specifically advise you which institution. But I know that there are quite a number of people out there who are already being a specialist in blockchain. Actually, one of my friends, He's actually on my LinkedIn. He's an associate professor dekat UIA, actually, if I'm not mistaken. And he specializes in blockchain, right? But I wouldn't dare to say that UIA is the best lah, right? But what you can probably do is to basically, because this area particularly is a new area, and you can see there's a number of materials out there, research papers and whatnot being done by some Malaysians. And then you can check out and see, usually they are attached to a tertiary education institution lah, right? So then you can see whether or not the programs that they have there is comprehensive enough and it suits your needs. My advice is at this point maybe not to specifically pin down on the specific institution, but try and trace the specific expertise who are in the company. I can give the leads if you want, and I'm sure there are new people in there who in my group who may know more about which institution, those who are specializing. I have one of my not my classmate tapi dia ni orang kuat IT ni, Muhammad Faizal. I think he may know some of the blockchain expert. Mungkin dia boleh bagi advice lah juga sikit nanti. But yeah, Mio, you can PM me on the site if you want. Nanti I'll try and find out for you a bit as well.
All right, thank you so much. Speaking of a degree in blockchain or Bitcoin and whatsoever, it's specifically inside, like usually the degree is titled what, may I ask? Do you know?
No, that's the thing. I think there's a number of different programs now that has that, because blockchain and fintech is actually a very specialized area, and usually it's done at postgrad level at this stage lah. As a specific specialization. At the degree level, I believe it will be tied to one of the business punya degrees, if I'm not mistaken. That may be linked to the technological bit. Right, I'm not sure exactly what degree program it is, but as I said, perhaps the best is to try and track the specialists who are tied to the education institutions and then see what kind of degree lah. I can try and find out more, and I don't dare to say what, and if I get the answer nanti, maybe I can share it all again lah. Maybe through you lah, Ahmad, nanti you can share with the rest. Right.
Yeah, sure. Because I also have a friend, but I don't really remember what was the title of his degree, because we met at a business competition, and he said that he specialized in a degree in artificial intelligence. So,
yes, AI is one of it, but I'm not sure whether it's specifically AI or it might be a sub to that. There's banyak branch, because there's a lot of stuff now, AI lah, mechatronics lah. Mechatronics is also can be quite relevant in the banking sector now. I know there are tiga area yang relevant now, mechatronics, oil and gas, health, and financial, right? So that's where the AI and robotics comes into the picture.
I see. Okay. All right. So thank you so much. Okay. So we have a more laid back question from Nick. If you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what advice would you give to him?
Enjoy more, maybe, and have some youth of my life back, because I lost a lot of my youth when I was in my younger days lah. But then again, I wouldn't regret, because I think whatever you go through in life is in a way set for you. There's a reason and purpose why you go through it, and therefore, on hindsight memanglah banyak benda kita boleh cakap kan. We go through the pain, all the painful stuff, kalau boleh memang rasa, kalau boleh tak nak. Tapi then again, it's those painful things are the one that teaches you, and that's when you learn, right? Like my point very much earlier just now, masters are those who fail most, right? So if I were to then wish that I had not failed, I would probably have not learned, and I will probably not be where I am now. So whilst I say that, yeah, I could advise myself to try and avoid all the painful things, tapi then again, I think I'm quite happy where I am, like.
Okay, thank you very much. May I ask, this is like a personal question.
Sure.
Did you enjoy reading books did you gain your knowledge through experience more?
Soalan cukup mas ni. I don't know whether cikgu, I don't know whether this is a good advice to the student or not lah, masalahnya. I tak suka baca.
Oh, it's okay, it's okay.
I went through my SPM probably doing reading last minute. My trial was quite bad, actually. As compared to my other friends and whatnot, apa semua, despite I'm, being a head prefect apa semua, yalah, tapi I managed to turn around for SPM lah primarily. But my style of studying my style of gaining knowledge is not primarily, I do read. I do like to read interesting things that happening. But I find that my best learning is from visual and audio.
I see.
Right.
Oh, you would have been a good student now.
So when I was in uni, I never skip my lectures and I never skip my tutorial, but I don't write notes. I just listen and I try to understand properly. If I don't understand, I ask. And I just make sure that I understand. And that's how I learn. For SPM pun, I baca, I buat practice, tapi kalau tak sure, I pergi tanya orang. That's how I learn. So, and now with all the, ada dengan Google lah, dengan YouTube-nya lah, semua kan, of course you need to make sure that you're looking at the right thing lah, and benda-benda sahih, right? Tapi, I suppose different people have different ways. That's my style. But where I do need to read, I read lah.
I see. Okay. Now, actually, I wanted to ask a different take on the question. I think maybe because I didn't put it out quite clearly, because like Nick said, the soalan was quite schema. But actually, my question was because if you did read, if you did enjoy reading, like throughout your student until now, I actually wanted to ask for your reading list because I am the schema kid that enjoys reading. So
I see. Okay.
I wanted your book list.
I do have materials. I do have references, right? But my style of learning also, as I said, I may not read the whole thing. If there is a reading material, I will read the specific parts of the in terms of the theories and concepts, understanding the concepts, understanding the two. But then I try to then look at the practical stuff. Then I will look at examples. I will look at how it's been applied, right? So that's where it's outside of reading lah. So I try to relate it back. But if you want to have materials for references, yes, I do. That's how I learn lah. But that's what I say. Kalau macam I pergi kalau macam kat uni dulu kan, kita cikgu all the lecturers apa semua ajar apa semua, dia bagilah all the quotes, references and whatnot. Okay lah, baca note ni, baca. Tapi lepas tu you tengok actually how it's applied rather than I baca the whole textbook tu, I memang tak habis lah. So usually I can baca the specific area apa semua, but then I will look at how it's been applied. That's my style, right? But as far as the materials and the references, yes, I do have that. I can share that with you. The thing is, if you want to share materials, there's a lot. Throughout my whole career, I think I've covered a lot of areas. So it's a question of which ones would you like for me to share. I would be more than happy to.
All right, thank you so much. I will definitely message you later. All right, so a question from Fazlan. To those interested to have a career in banking or insurance regulation, what skills do you think are important? Skills and relevant for them to develop?
On the regulatory side?
Yes. Banking and insurance regulation, yes.
Okay, an audit foundation would be good, right? Because usually in the regulatory side, those who are in the regulatory side will either be in two parts, lah, either supervision or regulatory or regulation. Usually supervision ni you pergi memantau orang, you tengok orang tu buat betul ke tak betul, salah tak salah. The other one is regulation, you set policies, right? Policy setting. It's two different things sebenarnya, but they both in a way requires an overall foundation. The general foundation usually is accounting, finance, or business or banking specific, as well as generally audit background would be good. The reason why I say this, because you need to do a lot of analysis, you need to pick out things, right? You need, and usually you get that kind of skills as you get yourself involved in the assurance function, right? So either external audit, financial audit, ataupun even internal audit for that matter, right? So, but it is that audit skills, which will be generally quite good. Apart from that, generally it's more of professionalism generally. I mean, there's no hard and fast skills or rules per se. If you were to go into the regulatory framework or the regulatory side, they look for different skill sets. They do want to have people with finance background, economic background, even legal, right? But the general bit is either policy development or assurance background or competencies.
All right, thank you very much. Now, because it's already 10 o'clock, but we started a bit late, so is it okay if we extend just for 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, so from Aisha, can I know what is the relation between insurance and economic development? First question. And can I know how big is the insurance industry?
Insurance industry in Malaysia. Okay, maybe perhaps I start off with that lah. Okay, just to give a context, but because insurance industry in Malaysia memang sebenarnya tak besar sangat in the context of the overall financial sector lah overall. Yeah, the banking sector itself overall makes up about 98%. It's got about 3.8 trillion worth of assets. Total in terms of assets size. The insurance industry has about 382 billion worth of assets up to end of last year, Ikram, which is only about it's just about therefore 10-11% or so, Ikram, of the total financial sector, right? It's not that big. It's not that big. However, it does play actually an important role in the economic development sebenarnya. But unfortunately in Malaysia at this point in time, the penetration rate of the insurance and takaful is still very low lah. It's only in the region of just slightly over 30%. Because benda ni kalau if it's not mandatory, like for the mandatory punya insurance macam kereta, or kalau you beli rumah ni nak kena beli MRTA or MRTT kan, those are mandatory punya, then memanglah you will buy. Tapi for the insurance that is more voluntary, like your life or family takaful insurance or coverage or medical or health coverage, for example, if it's not covered by your employer, we as individuals usually macam liat sikit nak beli. Unless we have excess funds, then only we will put that, because otherwise we will rather use that money to probably beli kasut ke, beli beg baru ke kan, rather than beli insurance, right? So but I think you can then now see, especially after this whole pandemic situation and what we've been through as a nation as well as globally, over the last 1.5 years or so, the awareness of importance of insurance and your personal protection has increased. Yeah. Not just on medical ke apa ke, but even other things like even your income protection, for example, right? Insurance, because a lot of people are now going through economic difficulties, or businesses are running into problems, and then they realize that they don't have any fallback, right? Kalau hilang pekerjaan dah tak ada benda, dah tak ada income. Kalau you ada income insurance, at least ada lah something sikit kan to cover, tolong sikit, support for a short while ke apa ke. So the awareness is increasing, right? And that's where insurance and takaful comes into the picture in terms of economic development. It's wealth protection. It's personal wealth protection or business wealth protection, right? So usually we won't see this until something happens. And that's usually the problem, right? So, but hopefully, and this week particularly, I'm not sure if you all are aware, but this week is the Global Money Week, Minggu Celik Kewangan. So part of it is to encourage people to understand about financial literacy, to understand about savings, as well as insurance and takaful protection, right? So I think you can try and search out and get a bit more information if you're not aware of what's the importance of it. But definitely it is important as part of the overall financial sector services and part of the financial safety net.
All right, thank you very much. I hope that answers your question, Aisha. Since we have a bit more time, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, before I ask Mia Zaharin's question on Facebook. Now, I understand Islamic finance is like growing worldwide, right? It's generally becoming more accepted, and it's not only practiced in Middle East countries that are Muslim ruled, but how because I understand we don't really fully follow it exactly according to the scripture or whatsoever, but there is a reason obviously why we don't do that. Now, could you share with us exactly why is the process like that, and what will be the future developments that Malaysia will be seeing in the future with regards to Islamic finance?
Okay. I wouldn't comment anything about whether we are following the actual scripture or not, because this is a bit sensitive. You're talking about religion kan, so kan ada orang kata ini you bagi ajaran sesat ke pula, cakap hadis mana mazhab mana pula ikut but no, but it's a fair point. It's a fair point because you're right. The practices of Islamic finance around the world differs. Just like in our religion to some extent, ada perbezaan juga sikit in terms of mazhab, in terms of how certain things are being done, right? But I think what the important bit I just like to highlight, I think, is the principle, the core principle behind it, even the ones that is being practiced in Malaysia, follows the core principles of Sharia, right? It's just that maybe the manner in which how the respective jurisdiction macam mana dia orang buat tu mungkin berbeza sikit. And our Islamic finance landscape in Malaysia has developed quite a lot in the past couple of years, right? And we are more and more, we have been prominent and we're becoming more and more prominent. And at the same time, even our scholars, also, Islamic, or Sharia scholars also are really diving into more details to make sure that they fine tune a lot of the practices, the processes and things like that, right? But I think we are generally there if you talk about, how we practice the principles of Islamic finance. And if and Nick can watch for it. Dia hari tu baru je involved in the Islamic finance punya. Sorry Nick, I selalu suka kacau dia pasal dia selalu kacau saya juga. So he was involved in the talk of Islamic finance and whatnot, and he can vouch that I think, the Malaysian punya environment actually is being referred to quite a fair bit in terms of our governance, in terms of our structures. We are very structured. Our governance structure also is very strong. How we make sure that our Sharia punya compliance and the principles are being set out. We have the Sharia Advisory Committee at the highest level at Bank Negara and SC that oversee the Sharia committees of individual financial institution. Structures semua ada, right? So we are on the right track, I would think, but it's always an evolving thing, and that's why one of the growing area for a lot of the practitioners, those who are existing and those who are also coming out from the graduate stream, is Islamic finance. I did Islamic finance training as well, right? I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I see the relevance, because even like for PIDM, for example, we manage 6 funds. Out of the 6 funds, 4 of it is Islamic funds that I need to ensure Sharia compliance. So.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ikram. Definitely answered my queries about, okay. So we have a sharing from Nick. Sharia compliant products in this country have to be approved by the Sharia Advisory Council of BNM in order to be offered to the public, and it has to follow Sharia principles in order to be approved. I see. Because the reason why I asked this question is because I've had a few discussions with my friends, my colleagues about this matter. Like they have this one hypothesis, I guess you could say, call it hypothesis. The reason why we may not be following hard lines based on, I guess, the Sharia principles, or what exactly is, because it's hard to say what is the real Sharia principles. Because the reason is, one, we need to compete with conventional, and then another reason is because to introduce something straight away at the max or at the full level of what it is about can be hard to be accepted inside community. That was practically the basis of my question, actually.
Okay, well, I think Nick has already given his views on it, and that's absolutely right. But as I said, I think here maybe I think that perception may have been more perhaps predominant in the past, particularly. Now, if you see, how even macam SAC, Bank Negara, NSC, manages, the Sharia matters apa semua, they really dive into all the, the technicalities of the Sharia principles, right? And I can vouch for that because I've sat through a session with SAC Bank Negara before, and they really go down into, hadis tu lah, hadis ni lah, ayat Quran this ni. So really, it's not, it's no longer, maybe in the past people may talk about, you want to compete between conventional and Islamic. If you talk to the sales people, maybe you will get that perception because they may not have the full technical Sharia details to be able to explain to you kenapa produk ni macam ni, or pasal conventional punya produk macam ni, so dia match lah macam tu. That's maybe why you get that kind of perception, right?
I see.
But the underlying development of the product, like macam Nick cakap tadi, each product tu, kalau nak dapat approval, goes through a very rigorous process, actually, right? So, perhaps, and you have a good point. It's a good point from the grassroots to say that, there's more knowledge required at certain level, especially at the frontliners, those who are making the sales, to be able to know that background and knowledge, to tell to those who are customers who are buying it, the real principles, or at least kalau tak tahu pun boleh make reference lah, tunjuk kat mana boleh check, right? So that they get the right perception and not just give a simple answer, oh produk ni macam ni, kenapa? Pasal conventional macam ni, dia match lah, macam tu. I know what you mean. I've encountered that kind of situation before. I can understand why you may have that perception. But I can tell you, like what Nick dah put in his note, memang betul. Semua kena check.
Thank you very much. It's actually a very big eye opener, and honestly, because like I guess because we're not given much coverage on the idea or the products of financial instruments in Islamic finance. Maybe obviously coming from my side, I may like a little bit, but thank you very much for the insight. Thank you. Okay, so we're already 10:14. We have one question, but it's mostly coming back to the books. So I'll just ask I'll go through a quick through. So Mir Zaharin asked, have you come across Daniel Kahneman's books, especially on economics? He says that he would like to know your opinion. I personally know about Thinking Fast and Slow, definitely a good book. And probing him on, he says that he mostly wants to ask with regards to biases in general.
Biases in general. Can be maybe a bit more specific about biases? There's a lot of angles of biases. I have to admit, I tak baca lagi dia punya buku specifically on that.
It's very nice.
Okay, so but I've covered a lot of other economic punya stuff lah juga, but I can try and answer that question, but maybe a bit more specific. Biases in what sense?
Okay, we might
maybe you can answer or unmute kalau nak tanya terus if you want, or dia dekat Facebook
Facebook, so susah sikit.
Okay, I see. Sorry lah, I mean if you are talking about in the context of the book, I haven't gone through that book specifically. So I'm not too sure from what angle lah on the biases, but there's a lot of issues lah juga or things about biases, losses.
Oh, okay. So Mir Zaharin says, one point is we view losses in a larger scale than profit. Oh, prudent.
Yeah, okay. Yes, definitely. That is a typical bias. Because under the capitalism model of economics, profit is key. Right? On the other extreme, the other bias, if you're on the socialist punya side, profit is nothing, everything is shared. Losses is just the cost that the society has to bear. This is where I maybe if I don't have a specific answer to what's right or wrong on this specifically, but I just like to bring it back to the concept perhaps of where Islamic finance comes in. On one end you have capitalism and the other end you have socialism. Islamic finance sebenarnya sits in between. It says you should make profit, but you should be fair and just, right? So it's ethical financing. That's what they always say. It sits right in between capitalism and socialism. And even, our Prophet ﷺ is a businessman, a trader. He makes profit, but he makes sure that it's equitable and just. So if you have that mindset and you do it in that manner, then the biases to some extent is balanced out, because then you wouldn't be seeing losses in a larger scale to that of profit, because it's all about balance, right? What you give, and that's where the even now what we're seeing now, the where we are moving forward, the sustainability agenda, even in the financial sector, the Islamic sector, the VBIs, value-based intermediation, right? It's all about giving back to the society and balancing out between profits and giving back, which is a cost, right? And social enterprises and social businesses. So yeah, I mean that's my take on that point lah. Sorry, I'm not being specific, but I hope that gives a bit of perspective.
Thank you. I think in a way it does help for Myor Zaharin to venture into other authors or other books as well. All right, so because it's now 10:19 and we've exceeded 10 minutes, some more. So thank you very much, Mr. Ikram, for being our special guest tonight with regards to, I don't think not only banking and finance, but we also delved into other topics such as Bitcoin and Islamic finance, which is all very interesting and very eye-opening. So of course, thank you very much to the audience who asked us questions, who joined us tonight from FB and also Zoom. And please do come again and join us in the future if we have our talks. And of course, thank you very much to TNF Energy for providing us this platform to continuously share knowledge with others. All right, so without further ado, Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum everyone and have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Alright, thank you, Ikram.
Terima kasih Cikgu Ikram.
Thank you, Cikgu. Sorry, cakap banyak sikit.
Tak. Sangat bagus. Thank you so much.
Oh, my friends pun masuk ke dalam ni tapi senyap je. Nick ada lagi?
Ada. Cikgu ada lagi. Cikgu kena ni je apa? Unmute.
Wan Muhammad Faizal, are you in?
Iman, buat co-host ni, Cik Wan.
Semua boleh unmute.
Betul, semua boleh unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Iman Facebook.
Oh, ada soalan lagi
Tak, I mean, you're still live.
Mr. Ikram, you're on Facebook, right? To see the commentary with regards to because I mostly want to focus on questions.
Yeah, sure. Tadi ni ada one of the participant, Muhammad Faizal. He is one of the senior dekat one of the banks, jaga IT. So he is also my batch juga dulu. So cikgu banyak ke budak-budak accounting kat sini who's doing quite well. So hopefully we all can help to contribute lah. Dia pun actually very active ni in the apa ni kan, in the alumni.
Saya memang nak suruh budak pelajar saya masuk dalam bidang ni. Cik Wan Faizal, boleh je unmute. Iman, live on Facebook. Oh, Iman nak ni
Oh, yes, I should be. Stop live stream. Okay, we have stopped live stream. Yep. I'll keep the recording on in case there's anything.
Yeah.
Okay, because we've already reached the finishing of the because is Mr. Nick still in here?
No, I think they dah keluar kot.
Okay. All right.
Alright. So, anything, please.
Actually, I think I can actually WhatsApp you in this matter. Tapi nak tanya whether like just to build up on my moderating, like whether you find anything that I should improve on, or like how what is your feedback? Yes.
No, okay. I think you did well. Apa ni? The details of the question is relevant. I think you managed to communicate the questions, quite well. I think I may have elaborated a bit too much also lah, so therefore tak banyak sangat opportunity for more questions, but I just wanted to make sure that people get the context lah, rather than just try to give a short answer macam tu je kan, rather than apa ni. But itulah, I think I hope that the session went well. I tak adalah cakap laju sangat ke apa, hopefully okay kan?
Okay je, sangat
Okay.
okay. Ha.
Sangat okey dan mudah difahami.
Okay, no, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that you all boleh apa ni lah, boleh benefit from the session lah. Itu je.
Saya
And hopefully the
sangat
kids, the students are able to take on lah from the points and whatnot.
saya sangat tertarik yang apa bank insurans sebab memang nampak jelas.
Yeah, I thought that, pasal I don't think anybody may have really given perhaps that perspective sangat lah. Pasal once you're in the industry tu memang you ada dah benda tu. Tapi apa ni, that perspective tu probably just to give a bit more understanding lah macam mana sebenarnya the banking punya and insurance industry operate.
Betul.
So,
Okey, Cik
banyak
Wan
opportunity.
Faizal dah unmute dulu. Cik Wan
Assalamualaikum.
Faizal.
Ini orang besar bank ni.
Ada concern sikit lah, tanya kata pasal sama aja Islamic product dengan conventional product, tak betul tu.
Memang tak betul.
Rasa pedih hulu hati lah dengar.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm just like trying to understand exactly what is the case and what is the future direction with regard to Islamic finance.
Dia sebenarnya macam ni, the Islamic product is not a competitor pada conventional products. It's an outlet for those Muslim people to get out from the riba, gara, and all those yang not permissible to Muslim lah. The problem in Malaysia, that kesedaran belum ada lagi. Even kalau kita tengok KWSP punya syariah compliance punya fund, masih lagi tak ada take up. So basically sebenarnya kita kena ke sana, bukan kita compare conventional dengan Islamic, which one is better. Kita sepatutnya dah okay, stop, go over there. Walaupun kita economically dengan financially rasa macam okay, Islamic product tak bagi untung banyak sangat, tapi itu bukan mindset yang patut ada pada seorang Muslim. Kebersihan dengan opportunity untuk contribute kepada Muslim punya ekonomi tu lagi penting lah kalau nak tengok. Itulah pendapat saya.
Definitely. I think itulah macam apa ni, I cakap tadi lah, it's the problem I think in the industry sebenarnya is bila orang yang duk jual produk or those who are marketing the product buat comparison side by side dengan conventional punya produk. Right, dia kata ni produk ni ambil loan macam ni apa semua, rate dia macam ni, kalau conventional rate dia macam ni, lebih kurang je. Bila they try to make that kind of comparison, right? Betul. So and even when they try to, the typical example is financing lah. Kalau you nak ambil loan kereta, for example, you ambil loan daripada bank konvensional ni, and then you ambil loan dengan bank Islamic. Dia punya, dia tengok term dia sama je lebih kurang. Right? Betul, dia kata, sama je, tapi yang ni, Islamic, ambil lah yang ni, tapi sebenarnya sama je. That kind of statement, right? Betul. So itu yang jadi masalahnya sebenarnya, and that's where I think those who are in the Islamic finance field, especially macam my friend ni, they're very passionate lah. Macam benda ni.
Thank you.
You can ask him to be the next speaker. He is in the IT side of a financial institution, and maybe kalau you nak tanya pasal IT, in the business side, in the banking world, he's the man lah. He's the man. So, but yeah, I think it's good to get the right perspective lah of Islamic finance.
Yeah, this session definitely helped. I think, but my apologies if I put it or worded it in a offensive way.
Sabar.
Okay. So
Okay.
ada apa-apa ke yang nak
Ada pada. So thank you very much again, Iman and the team, and Cikgu, thank you so much Cikgu.
Thank you.
And kirim salam dekat budak-budak semua kat sana. And seriously, I'm quite passionate, and I think my friend Teja tahu lah, I'm also very passionate to tolong the school. I was supposed to give a talk pergi kat sana, tapi itu tak cepat jadi, and now the MCO memang langsung tak lah kan. So but if there's any areas that I can help with ke apa ke, especially in my field, to reach out lah. I'm more than happy to help mana yang boleh.
Of course. Thank you so much, Cik Ikram.
Sama-sama. Thank you so much everybody.
Selalu tolong juga. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Tapi memang sangat bagus hari ni punya slot. Cikgu rasa banyak orang student cikgu sangat suka lah. Cikgu harap lah, cikgu mengharap student cikgu masuk dalam bidang ni, tolong lah.
Ada ke masuk ke cikgu?
Apa dia?
Student masuk ke?
Ada student dia masuk, memang student dia masuk.
Sebab tengok baju Taiping Thunders ke?
Itulah pasal saya nampak dari tadi, okey.
Kena lah support baju official rugby Taiping kot.
Cik Hafiz yang promote lah.
I kena tolong support lah kan. So I kena ada satu lah juga.
Good. So
okay, thank you so much. Kalau tak apa-apa, I minta diri dulu. As I said, if there's anything, do let me know lah. Kalau ada perlu apa-apa ke, and then kirim salam lah to all the students and the teachers there.
Okay, boleh, insyaAllah. Boleh.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Thank you.
Okay, Peja, see you.
Okay. Jumpa lagi.
Assalamualaikum. Alright, Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, students.